This is Neil King for Random Acts of Cartooning, and I'm at the Naval Yard in Philadelphia, and I'm about to draw a boat. But first... Hey everyone, so here it is. The influence for this episode is John Romita's The Amazing Spider-Man, the Artist Edition. I only own 2 different artist editions, and this was such a surprise about how great it was that it reminds me of how growing up in the 70s and 80s and all that stuff, a lot of the things that I was watching or reading, most of the covers had something to do with John Romita. And he didn't just do Spider-Man and everything. He was really involved for a lot of the things, even when Kirby was around. So this book is it's a spectacular book. It's like twice the size of a regular comic. It's so big I have to handle this like this. I could show you. This is one of my comics for kids, and that's a traditional size next to these artist editions. So these are spectacular, and for me to show it to you, it's not easy. So the thing about it, these are so well laid out and everything, but the influence I'm most interested in is showing you what comic creators really kind of used to do. And now remember, Romita is the top of the heap, like you think about the great ones who've ever done stuff. But his backgrounds, this is a close-up of one panel on one of the pages. But all of his panels were just so elaborate and so interested in perspective and space. So even if Spider-Man's jumping through this window or pulling out of this window, it reads so well. It makes you really feel like you're in New York City. And I think that was one of the draws back then, that people really felt like they were transported in these comics to a different time. But everything he ever did, like look at this beautiful perspective, 3-point perspective brings you down. And they're just making this look so easy. It's just in every panel, though. Most comics nowadays, they'll do one panel with a certain amount of background, and everything else is a lot of stagnant images. But if you notice in every one of these panels, beyond the fact that they're filled with a lot of text and a lot of stuff, I don't feel like these episodes were incredible stories, but they were so spectacular in everything they do. Like all of his hatching, all of his line weight, all the things that he did, Romita is just the best. So I tried to pull a few pages where I'm bringing this up because just being able to be someone who knows what certain kind of cars and taxis and all kinds of buses and pulling together inside a panel, just a panel, is one of the hard things to do. Every one of these panels needs some type of perspective, and there can be futuristic stuff. But really, what he's doing is he's making you believe that this character is looking down onto this police car in this group of people outside of the Daily Bugle. And it's as if it's real. It's beautiful. It's just the great technician. And I don't think people really are even anywhere in his class anymore about what he kind of did. And it just took me to see these kind of pages with this type of illustration. Great weight, great technique. But it's really all based in reality. And I'm sure he had certain references around. Back then, he didn't have a computer. But when you're drawing something like these, you really need to have some sense of what this, a train looks like and how it works along something, like he may have looked at movies or things like that or whatever. But it's just so unbelievably beautiful. Even scenes like this, one panel, look at all that background. Nobody does that ever anymore. Reversing line, all this little information. Just so great. I could go over every single one of these and show you another great sense of, by him looking at real stuff, all of his work is just so amazing. It's great to see it in this big format too. This is one of like the most famous things he's ever done, at least to me. These scenes where it's like, look at this total vertical that goes all the way down the background, all the way down. See that shadow? And it's coming towards him. And then you come in from a distance, and this big shot. This is a monthly book. Who would do something like this? Look at that background, great text, impossibly great figures. I think about these pages all the time, and this is what is in this collection. So it's important for all of us artists to go out and make sure that we are basing our stuff on reality, and that means going outside and drawing things from life. Okay, so here I am at the Naval Yard. If you've never been there before, it's a great place. You can just kind of visit. You can walk around and see some of the great sites. They have a lot of companies are kind of there now. There's this great aircraft carrier. But I was kind of interested in this this tugboat, I guess is what it is, the Hunter D. So I thought that's what I would like to do for this time that I was coming. I definitely am going to come again and see, some more of the things. I was kind of interested in drawing some different types of boats, some naval things. Like I'm kind of in the neighborhood of trying to find some things like perhaps like tanks or trucks or some kind of a thing that could be interesting to kind of draw and to get a sense of how those things work. It really does help me when I'm drawing all kinds of different scenes. I have so many different scenes I have to draw. And but to get a good sense of the proportions for some of these things really will help for me in any of the books and stuff that I do actually draw all the time. So it is fun, though, to get there. It was a nice day. So I brought my my regular sketchbook here. I think this is about a 90-pound sketch paper. And I'm just trying to get in pencil the proportions of this tugboat. And it's got a lot of stuff on it. Like there's a lot of like little informational stuff, windows and ladders and all kinds of different stuff. So I have to keep checking back and forth when there's something that has this much information that I need to kind of take a look at. So so for this, I'm at the first part. I'm just really kind of getting my sense of all of those proportions and the perspective. Now this is like a 2-point perspective, so on the side it's going back, and I have to keep in my head, like I have a grid in my head about how this is kind of working. So these are big shapes and everything I'm working on right here. And I jump ahead a little bit. You can see I've kind of got a lot of this kind of the tiers of the boat. I've been able to kind of get in there so that the last part being with the pen and ink, I like to kind of just make sure that everything's pretty much in their right place. It's really hard when you have something like this. Like I find myself sometimes when I'll go in with my the pen or the brushes and all that stuff that I just didn't do the early work, which is saying, that the bottom of the ship is this proportion to the top, or each tier kind of ends at a certain place, or there are 5 windows compared to 4 windows, and all the stuff, and nobody will really care if this sketch like this wasn't super accurate. But for myself, I just want to keep proving to myself that I am looking for the things that I need to look for so that the proportion will be better. And it's just because you look for things like where are things kind of ending and beginning. Like if the next tier of the thing starts where a window begins, it's a good way to figure it out. So at this point I have kind of a rough pencil down. And I brought with me, as usual, this ink pen with water-resistant ink. It's pretty much waterproof, but it's a little not waterproof. And it's got a very fine line. So I'm getting more and more comfortable drawing with it. But for this, there's all these, like I say, there are plenty of things going on. And a sketch like this that I would like, I think it took me a total, I was probably there for about a half an hour, I think. I just want to be able to do what I do here, and which is just kind of get a really nice sense of the image. And knowing that I'm going to do it in color, I don't have to overdo the inks, but I do really need this to get the proportions I need for each one of the sections that there are. But again, like when I'm seeing it, it really makes it kind of easier once that pencil that I did was, kind of accurate. Because I even see here, like, I'm a cartoonist, so I'm always going to stylize stuff a certain amount. And I think I make things, try to make them look a little more dynamic, and the perspective is probably a little bit, a little more forced, because I like, when I see an image like this, I think of it as in a panel, or for a cover, or for something. And so no matter what, I feel like I'm trying to put a little energy into the image instead of letting it just kind of be just a technical exercise. The thing too here is, you're dealing with a lot of straight lines, and I don't use rulers for stuff like this. So you're trying to just kind of get an angle so that you can make a clean straight line. And that's, so there's a lot of quick little moves to make sure that the line is pretty close, but then if you see the top of that boat, it kind of curves in the front. There's not an edge, a nice clean super edge on it. So, as I keep moving along with this, I'm still just trying to make sure that everything's in the right place. And even as I say that, because looking at how it is right here with this point of it, there definitely was some inconsistencies. Like I looked at, imagine there was a certain one of the windows around portals or whatever might not have been exactly where it should have been, but nobody else is going to be able to tell. But I do, that's the kind of stuff when I'm in the middle of it, especially when you're inking, that then you've got to live with it. So again, it brings me back to taking my own advice, which is the pencil stage. Make sure things are at the place that they're supposed to be, so that all you're doing when you're rendering at this phase, you're just going in and putting out everything you've seen. So for me, it's like going in here, and I'm like, there's a ladder that I didn't have to put in pencil, but if it's in the right place, it will make sense. And I just look at the top of it or the side of it, and I see where it begins and ends above and below it. So if there's a railing like that, if there's some kind of a thing that's around, you use the proportions to remind yourself. And I just keep looking at, am I in the right proportion? Like, what level am I on here? because there's multiple levels. And because it's not like I went in with color or anything, that I would be able to differentiate that sometimes in my brain. So every little thing that I'm adding is just me now being like, everything's kind of proportioned, everything's where it should be. So now the peripheral little parts to it, I can just keep adding. And whether there's some kind of a larger tower that comes off of it, I just keep looking and I'm like, where and what am I seeing through to get to that tower? Which I have it in pencil just a little bit up there, that kind of cross shape that's further ahead where my pen is. But if I look at it and it's not in the right place, then you're just kind of making stuff up a little bit, and it's fine, and it's not like it's just a sketch. But in perspective, I'm always like, well, this vanishing point is over towards this, or everything's off to the side. And that's something that you just get used to doing as you kind of deal with these kind of situations. You're just out there, and I'm just sitting on a step, about 20 feet away or 30 feet away from the actual boat. So you just want to kind of be there, and you're like, okay, I'm here to get this image down. So I'm just kind of making my way through with all this. Again, a little bit more detail at this point. And again, when I see things like this, it's hard because I do like a stronger line for a lot of the things I do. But then I recognize if I'm going to come in with color, I don't need to have the line be too strong. The thing that should be, creating the illusion of space when you have the color is it's going to be that color. When you don't have any color, then it's your line weight and it's all your hatching and all that kind of stuff. But again, here I am, and I'm a cartoonist, and I can't help myself but wanting to have that line to be the strongest part. And I fight that all the time when I'm doing my sketching. I know that I don't need to have such a strong line, but at some point, I'm going to put it in there to a certain amount. But for this, I'm just kind of laying in the text that's on the side of the boat, and I'm trying to see where the D ends compared to the end of it on that right-hand side. And then there's a little bit of some image stuff. I want to kind of give you a little sense of what's around it. Because it is a shipyard, like, there's some different ships back there. There's another big boat next to it that we can't quite see, but I'm just going to put a little bit of information in so that it gives a little sense of depth and proportion. And for this, you really want to, you don't want this to be too strong, because if it's the same weight eventually as the stuff in the foreground, it could all look like it's one big part of the boat, and you don't want that. So even though the weight right now is the same as what I'll be, what it is with the rest of the boat, eventually I will bump up the line for the tugboat and everything there. There's going to be a lot more, stuff. It's right along this pathway to. So there's a lot of stuff around to draw, but I really do want to keep it kind of simple, and find the horizon and what's back there. It's right there on this river. And if you don't put this stuff in, I feel like sometimes it just makes it harder to kind of see it in your brain, like how big this thing is. Just to kind of get a view of it, this is what it looks like again. It's right there. So I feel like I've got, a typical kind of resemblance to it. But now, as you see, I'm going to go in with my brush, and this is when you're kind of looking for all the darkest darks and to beef up some of those lines. Now, as soon as I do beef up the line, then all of a sudden everything in the background recedes all the way back. So this is kind of the good thing about this brush is everything that you do with it, it gives you a little bit of a sense of its, that's worn, I guess, a little bit. And that dry brush that you get, which is what I really use this brush for. I won't pull this out unless I know I'm going to do something in the background or some other kind of thing, because it really does make a statement when you kind of do this. And a sketch like this, I think it really helps it. And it gives it a certain sense of drama. And I think for a lot of sketches to have a little bit of texture that's not all the same is always wise. I feel like that the regular line weight isn't interesting enough for me of that pen, unless I was doing a whole lot of scratching onto it, or if I do cross-hatching and stuff. But for this is the kind of effect you get, because I just know also that I'm about to get a whole bunch of extra color on top of this. So I'm not doing every bit of it. I know I'm going to come on there with some blues and some blacks and stuff. So all of this is now me just like making marks that give some nice texture, push things around, but the consistency of that big part of the boat is all there now, and you get a little bit of a different feeling. So I'm just trying to make sure that it's not, that line isn't in just one place. You want to move it around so that your eye can move all around the whole design. And it is definitely something that, if you're not aware of it, all of your lines, you're bringing the viewer's eye to a specific place. So make sure that you're kind of just doing some of these lines in a lot of places throughout the whole design. Hey everyone, as always, I always remind everyone that I am a working cartoonist. So the whole point of doing my episodes is to get everybody to go to my Amazon store and buy a bunch of the books that I make. So I have all kinds of different types of books, whether it's for all ages, like Who Stole All the Heads at the Met, and all kinds of books like this, Snowmen in the Springtime, fun contemplation of what would happen if snowmen survived into the spring. And then these are some older ones that I really think a lot of kids would like. Monsters in the Box. There's 4 different books that are collected in here. You get all this on Amazon. I have all the links in the episode. And as always, I'm here doing my sketches. I do conventions and everything, and I do all kinds of commissions. So these are the kinds of pieces that I do. So always contact me about that, or look for me at some of the local conventions that you're involved in. But make sure you're liking and subscribing. Okay, so here we are at the last part of the sketch. I brought my travel watercolor set. For this one, it's one of those days that's it's like overcast. So I'm going to use a lot of blues for this, and just kind of do this kind of little bit of a dry brush around, so you get a sense of what the kind of day is. And the good thing about watercolors is that they dry pretty quickly, so you kind of get an idea very quickly of, is it kind of working? Like, is the look that you're going for actually working? Now, I have a water brush, and that water brush, all it is you squeeze at the end of it and pushes out a little water so that it mixes or lightens any of the watercolor that you're using. So for me, this is a piece that's kind of, because there's a certain amount of dreariness to this. So by even putting the blue underneath what's going to eventually be a very dark part of this boat, it gives it a little bit of variety. And sometimes I'll do this with reds, or sometimes I'll use yellows and stuff. But once you come back on with some of the dark value, it'll really kind of pop, and it gives it's so much more interesting when you do it that way. So all I'm doing now is just kind of covering the surface with this kind of medium to light value, especially even the stuff in the background, just to kind of be like, all right, that's back there. You know, knowing that every part of this is just going to keep getting deeper and deeper. The front of the boat, I'm using a really light value, so to give a sense of the shadow on one side, and then the opposite side doesn't have that much of it. I think it's around, when I was doing this, somewhere around 10 o'clock, 11 o'clock in the morning. And but it was kind of cloudy. So everything I'm doing, I think, has that sense of a little bit of the dreariness. So I'm jumping a little bit further ahead, adding, some of the darker, some black into that blue, and I'm getting more and more aggressive with it, so that so it doesn't seem too blotchy. I want to have some type of an overall kind of look with it. Some tires over there, but again, it's as a sketch, you're trying not to overdo too much of it. And it's just a lot of fun just to kind of get in there and get some of these values in there. I even put on the bottom some of that yellow orange to kind of give a foreground, and I threw a little bit in the back also. I'll go over some of it with some of the black so it won't be too strong. You got to mute that a little bit so it doesn't overpower everything, which it could easily do. But again, like I'm just using, it's almost like just using really two colors with the yellow orange and the blue. And I do think that by using that, I'm definitely a limited color kind of person. I think it does give it a better sense of value when I do it like this. And I just want to kind of just add some of this stuff. I don't, when you're doing sketch work out there, you just, it's always hard too. You could always finish it more. But, you don't want this thing to be lasting all day to do. And it's just fun to kind of get out there and make it happen. But remember to squint your eyes when you're looking at something that you're doing. It'll help you with the contrast when you're looking at the image. Because even with this, I'll leave, and then I'm sure I'll go and I'll touch up a little stuff here and there to make it a little bit stronger. Like, to me, I could probably beef up some of the black that's on there from the watercolor, instead of making it so lighter gray. You want to, I kind of see it as I probably could make that, I could beef that up a little bit more. And I'm just pushing the value around. I'll get a little green out of it, actually, with that blue and that yellow orange. So for me, you do want to make sure, there's a river behind it. And then once I'm starting to see this kind of stuff, I want to make sure that I see all of the variety. I don't want it to be too kind of patchy. Bring out some more value, get it in there. That blue is always going to be showing. And I try not to be too aggressive, but I can't help it. Just kind of moving my way through it. Getting pretty close. And again, I probably will touch up little stuff. But the best thing about this is it just gets you as an artist out of your chair and away from all of the computer possibilities that you can go and download a picture and just look at it and do it, use all kinds of different stuff. This way, it really does force you to look at it in different types of ways. So I do appreciate you watching this episode, and make sure to check out some of my other ones. Make sure you're subscribing and liking, and we'll see you next time.